Back with Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings, this time part 2. The book's really good so far. Let's just get into it. I thought it'd be best to break this down maybe bit by character since we have all these different arcs going. But that's part of what I'm enjoying so much now is that I've gotten introduced enough to all of the individual characters and I'm starting to see all the themes come together. So now I'm like really kind of diving into the story and getting invested. I have some notes here. Let's start with Kaladin and his whole arc. Kaladin, I really like him as a character. I like the way that Brandon Sanderson is able to go back and provide these chapters that are just backstory, like from years past, back when he was a kid with his father, showing the dynamics between him and his dad, this desire to fulfill the role that his dad has seen for him versus his own internal desires to become a warrior. And that leads to this whole dichotomy of this archetype between, you know, the surgeon and the warrior, life and death, all these sorts of symbolic features that are really unique to his particular arc. But there are also parallels between Dalinar and Adolin and their father-son relationship and some other things there. But I want to talk about them after Kaladin. So with Kaladin, I like how he came essentially to his edge, literally and figuratively, by going up to the chasm, thinking about diving in, and instead of having like a literal death, he had more of a symbolic death, and was like, okay, he had a rebirth through that, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. He's like, okay, I'm gonna go tell Gaz what's up, and I'm gonna do what I can here. This is like Stoic philosophy. I'm still a slave, I'm still stuck in Bridge 4, but what can I control? I'm gonna try to do the best I can given my current position. So that's great. And he's working, trying to build rapport with all the other members of Bridge 4. And he has some ideas. It's not completely elucidated yet what his ultimate goal is, but he's trying to build up to something. And so that brings in these other side characters like the Horn Eater and some others. And I find that the whole dynamic there really fun. One of my favorite scenes from part 2 was when they're at the edge of the chasm. I forgot what the weed is called that they're milking to get the substance out of it to use as an antiseptic, whatever it's called. But they're sitting there and they're talking and they're chatting and they're kind of talking about their backstories and things and laughing, and it's like a really jovial experience. And Kaladin has a moment, he goes, this is what I've been missing, you know. So the friends there provide an opportunity for him to think about what more he has to live for, like those interpersonal relationships. There's also Syl. And I've been getting more used to this idea of the Spren and how they're a Spren for different things. I think that as a tool for the story and for the plot line, it's really nice. And Syl adds like a whole nother dimension to Kaladin's arc in terms of what she's able to help them out with. And I also like watching her as she progresses and becomes more nuanced in her understanding of like human emotions and communication styles. She comes to understand this idea of lying. She's like, why would people do that? And she comes to understand sarcasm more and more. She starts to implement it on her own into speech. And it brings a really like youthful aspect to that whole storyline. And it's like watching a child kind of grow up and learn how adults communicate, things like that. But the whole addition of Syl it's great. And I like how, so in the first part, in the first video, I said, I feel like only Kaladin can see Syl. That was confirmed, but then the Horn Eater can see her. And so it hasn't explained yet fully why that is, but that's like another interesting thing. I'm not sure how consequential that will or won't be, but something's going on there with that. And okay, so that's Kaladin. Really enjoying that. Let's move on to Dalinar and Adolin. The father-son dynamic is again there. So we get to see this played out between Kaladin and his dad. And then we have a similar pattern going on with Dalinar and Adolin. But their relationships brings about, I think, an even larger archetype overall that the story is contending with, that being this constant balance between conservatism on the part of Dalinar and wanting to adhere to the old codes and seeing the people around him straying from those conservative values and saying, hey, we need to get back to tradition. We're going too far. We're being led too far astray from what keeps us safe and keeps us united. And then Adolin, obviously being the youth and being from the new generation, having a more progressive approach and saying, no, there are certain things that we need to let go of, leave in the past, and new things that we need to implement in new ways forward. And that's something that our country is obviously dealing with a lot. And that's like saying, the wind blows, because it's an archetype. It's something that's always happening, but it's very pertinent to modern times, this balance that needs to be had between conservatism and progressivism so that we move forward, because we can't stay completely in the past, because things become stale and they fall apart if they become too rigid, but things also fall apart if they become too fluid and we're not held to certain traditions, things that have been learned over iterations over long periods of time that keep us safe and united and moving forward at a pace that's sustainable. So you have this whole archetype unfolding there in the broader sense, but then more specifically, I like seeing how Adolin and his father, they're able to communicate. His father's very receptive to his ideas. So Dalinar's having these visions, and it's left up to the reader, it seems, at this point in the story to think about whether or not you believe that the visions are true, or if it's just him kind of losing his mind, as some in the story are suggesting. I have an inherent sense that the visions are true. I'm not sure if they're 100% true, or if there are elements, themes that are real, and then aspects of it that are just like dreamlike states for him, or if they're truly visions from like some other ether, and the whole thing's just as real as his everyday life, if that makes sense. I'm not exactly sure yet, but I think that there's still value to his visions. I don't think he's just completely losing his mind. I like that Adolin is still able to bring up his concerns with his dad, though, and he says, maybe he'll say, like, this isn't the right place when he was trying to talk to him at the feast, but we'll talk later, and I will consider what you have to say. So that's nice. They have this good communication between them. I feel like Adolin is also caught between his dad in some sense and his conservative values, and the progressive nature of the king, his cousin, Adolin's cousin. And Adolin seems to be the one that's gonna walk this middle line, like between the yin and the yang, and maybe unite them, which is like, unite them as a theme that is coming from Dalinar's visions and the old king, King Gavilar's like final request to him. The thing is, though, that Adolin is not the king. As I just said, he's the king's cousin. So I'm not actually sure how he's going to effectuate like the change or the solution, but I'm sure that's obviously a part of the story that we're getting to. So a lot of interesting things going on there. I would like to see a bit more from Adolin's specific perspective. Like, the story is more focused on Dalinar right now, which is still great, but I want to get a little bit more into Adolin's mind, like spend a little bit more time from his perspective specifically. Moving on, we have Shallan. I think she was largely left in part 1, but at the end of part 2, we get this interesting but also kind of hilarious like exchange between Jasnah and Dalinar through what I'm thinking of as like AOL Instant Scriber. They're like scribing, and it's transmitting across space and time to the other person's paper, and they're going back and forth. And then at the end, you get like the first SMS image text from Shallan, it seems, because Jasnah says, my new ward, this is her, and she draws something out for him. I think it was a chasm fiend or something, but that's pretty cool. And that adds another element to the story that I didn't know about before, that they have an ability to talk across space in this world. Then there's Seth. I don't know if there was a chapter, but maybe it was just an interlude kind of leading into part 2. And his character's fascinating. Obviously, he's incredibly important to this story. He's the one who killed the King Gavilar. But he didn't necessarily want to. And it showed him as being completely beholden to the requests of whoever is his master at the time, based on some sort of, I don't know what it is, and that's my point. Is it like a pact? Is it some sort of honor thing? Is it cultural? Is it like magical in its elements? I don't know, because he seems to still have agency of his own mind, but he'll still follow whatever request is given to him, even if it's ridiculous, like, hurting himself or doing something abhorrent, like killing the king. Even if he doesn't want to do it, he still does it. And I'm just thinking, okay, but why? Why not just refuse? There must be some reason there, but it hasn't been explained yet. So I'm interested to see what comes of that. So those are like the different character arcs that come to my mind, the main ones. Overall, I'd say the story is picking up the pace. I'm starting to see how all the elements are coming together, and I know enough now to start kind of speculating on what direction things are going to go. I want to make not even a prediction, but I just want to say I want an Adolin and Kaladin crossover. I'm hoping that's coming. Like, I hope they come across each other at some point and interact. That would be great to see. I already said I want to see more from Adolin's perspective. I think that's about to happen because at the end of part 2, Dalinar says he's about to resign his position in favor of Adolin. And overall, I just want to say, like, the book is great. I think I mentioned this in part 1. The last fiction series I read was Dune. And Dune started off really good and then just fizzled out in terms of its writing, and this is just so much better. So I really am pleasantly not surprised, because I trusted the people who recommended it to me, but I'm just really happy with the book and how it's gone so far, and looking forward to getting into part 3. So I'll see you back here once I finish part 3. Thanks for checking this video out, and I'll see you next time.